You think bureaucracy is a modern problem. You think forms, permits, and 3-week email chains are some kind of corporate invention of the 20th century. Wrong. Dead wrong. And the man responsible has been dead for 5,000 years, which means he conveniently cannot be held accountable for what he started around 3,400 BCE in the ancient Sumerian city of Uruk, modern-day Iraq. Human civilization was humming along nicely. We had figured out farming. We had figured out cities. We had beer, which honestly might be humanity's only truly perfect invention. And then, someone had an idea. The oldest written document ever discovered is not a love poem. It is not a hymn to the gods. It is not even a war declaration. It is a ledger. A boring, meticulous, soul-crushingly administrative ledger tracking the delivery of barley and beer to workers. The first thing humanity ever wrote down was a spreadsheet. And the moment we did that, the moment we decided that human transactions needed to be recorded, verified, and filed, we didn't just invent writing, we invented the bureaucrat. And we have never, not once, in 5,000 years, figured out how to get rid of him. Here is what actually happened to early Sumerian civilization. A city grows. Farmers need to trade grain for pottery. Merchants need to track debts. Temple administrators need to count offerings. And suddenly, no one trusts anyone's memory anymore. So you write it down. Fine, reasonable, sensible even. But here's what nobody planned for. Once you start writing things down, you cannot stop. Because the moment you write down that Shamash owes you 3 goats, Shamash is going to want a record that he already paid you 2 of them. And then you need a record keeper to verify the record. And then you need someone to oversee the record keeper. And just like that, you've invented middle management. Congratulations, ancient Mesopotamia. If the Sumerians invented bureaucracy, the Romans perfected it into something genuinely terrifying. At the height of the Roman Empire, there were over 50 million people living under Roman rule, spread across 3 continents. And the Romans had one overriding philosophy for managing all of them. Write everything down, stamp it, copy it twice, and send a copy to Rome. There are recorded cases of Roman military commanders missing tactical windows because they were waiting for authorization to march from administrators in Rome who had never seen a battlefield in their lives. The empire didn't just fall to barbarians. It was slowly strangled by its own filing system. Now, if you want to see what happens when a civilization lets bureaucracy run entirely unchecked, with no enemies, no disasters, no external pressure to simplify, you look at pre-revolutionary France. 18th century France was, without question, the greatest bureaucratic achievement in the history of Western civilization. Not as a compliment. As a warning. By the time Louis XVI was on the throne, the French royal administration had produced so many rules, counter-rules, regulatory subclauses, and ministerial exceptions to ministerial exceptions, that no single human being alive fully understood the entire system. Not the king, not his ministers, not even the people who built it. Here is a real example. If you wanted to open a small workshop in Paris, just a small one, making chairs, you needed approval from the Guild of Carpenters, then a municipal registration from the local commissioner, then a royal patent from the king's office, which required a character reference, a sworn statement of financial standing, and a waiting period of, typically, 2 years. Then, once you had all of that, you discovered that chairmaking also fell under the jurisdiction of the Guild of Joiners, who were a completely different guild, who hated the carpenters. And you had to start over. This is where the phrase red tape literally comes from. Legal documents in France were physically tied with red ribbon to mark them as official. There was so much red ribbon crisscrossing the offices of Paris that if you laid it all end to end, you could circle the earth. Which means the French government accidentally created the world's largest decorating project while trying to regulate chair manufacturing. And when the French Revolution came in 1789, people weren't just angry about bread. They were angry about forms. You'd think that at some point, after watching empires collapse under their own documentation, after a literal revolution triggered by permit requirements, humanity would collectively say, enough. Let's simplify. Let's cut back. Let's agree that not everything needs to be recorded, reviewed, signed, countersigned, and filed. Reader, we did not do that. We didn't eliminate bureaucracy in the modern era. We gave it Wi-Fi. Today's corporate office has replaced the Ministry of Bridges with the Department of Stakeholder Alignment. It swapped the royal seal for the DocuSign approval chain. It replaced the powdered wig with the LinkedIn profile. And it kept, entirely unchanged, the fundamental, immovable human instinct to create a meeting, to discuss the meeting. In 2023, researchers at Harvard Business School estimated that middle managers, people whose primary job is coordinating other people's work rather than doing work themselves, account for roughly 30% of total corporate payroll in developed economies. We have built an entire global economy in which hundreds of millions of people's full-time job is managing the paperwork generated by other people who manage paperwork. The Sumerian scribe didn't invent a tool. He invented a self-replicating organism. Here is the honest truth about bureaucracy and why 5,000 years of evidence has done absolutely nothing to slow it down. Bureaucracy is not a mistake. It is not a bug. It is, in its darkest and most accurate reading, a completely rational response to one of the oldest problems in human civilization. Nobody trusts anybody. Every piece of paperwork ever created began as someone's attempt to solve a real problem. The Sumerian ledger stopped livestock thieves. The Roman legal code unified an empire. Even the French Ministry of Bridges was, in theory, trying to ensure bridges didn't collapse. The problem is that bureaucratic systems are like the universe itself. They only expand. They do not contract. Every solution creates the conditions for 3 new regulations. Every simplification spawns a committee to oversee the simplification process. There is a government agency in the United States whose entire job is reducing federal red tape. It has a 400-page manual on how to do so. It has not gotten smaller since it was created. Somewhere in whatever counts as the afterlife, a Sumerian scribe is watching all of this. He is not surprised. He has seen your kind before, and he is filling out the form to have you audited.